2NURFM.com, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
7 years we have been conducting NAPLAN tests, looking at kids in years 3, 5, 7 and 9. However, we've seen no major improvement, and this caused consternation from Parliament to preschool last week, with people scratching their heads saying, why aren't our kids improving in literacy and numeracy? The two real areas where we feel they should be improving. Here to talk us through this is University of Newcastle Head of School Education, John Fischetti, and he joins us regularly on a fortnightly basis to discuss just this, education, and at the end of the day, how we can make our kids well equipped and better to live in the real world. Good morning and welcome, John.
Good morning, Meryl. How are you?
Was there head scratching for you when these stories came out last week? What were you thinking, John?
I was thinking that I was worried that the wrong impression might be left by relatively flat, somewhat improved NAPLAN scores, that we might actually take the wrong message from these scores.
Okay. Given that message, the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority boss, Robert Randall, said that there had been steady improvement. However, the chief scientist said he's really thinking that things aren't going very well at all. Christopher Pyne, the Minister for Education, said that increased spending by 40% over the last 10 years, we'd still seen really not the sort of great results we'd wanted. And he's saying everyone needs to get back to basics. So a lot of messages for parents, people to take in and have a mild panic and think, I just want my child to do well. You know, why can't these people come to an agreement and figure it out?
Well, first of all, the urgency of this is that math actually is the gatekeep for the future, for the innovation age. The creative problem solving, the flexibility, the thinking, as well as the logic of math is crucial to open the doors to anything in computer science, technology, math, the future in medicine and engineering, space. So the future involves math. That's why this is really crucial. There's three parties, I think, that have to share responsibility but not blame. The first are teachers and teacher educators. The second is parliaments and policymakers, departments of education. And the third are what do we do at home? So those three groups each have to really look in the mirror and say, what are we going to do? And I can share just briefly what each of those groups might want to take on advisement from this.
Please.
So in schools, particularly primary schools, math is not the favorite subject of most of the teachers. And because they haven't necessarily applied math, they may have gone to school and taken it, they tend to do still a worksheet-like approach in math. I don't know if that's been your daughter's case, because many schools have moved way beyond this into projects and creative things. But many teachers do creative things in literacy, less so in math. Because of that, they don't necessarily show students why they're learning it. And for students, then they become more rote memory rather than actual long-term learning.
I still think you've hit the nail on the head, John Fischetti. My 16-year-old comes home and says to me, I don't understand why I've got to learn. I'll never use this. This is so abstract. I'll never use this in my life again. And she's actually starting to say, I don't like it. I hate it. She's never said that before. And my 11-year-old is on the cusp of that. She's a math kid. She does like it. But she's even starting to think, what it doesn't relate to me. I don't relate to anything I'm being told. And I think that is the crux of this, that kids really, and parents, we need to get that it's not just rote learning tables and knowing a mathematical, thing to do. It's how that relates to us in life and how it's going to help our lives.
Right. And many of our young people do not bring the fundamental skills through the early years forward. So they're still doing their multiplication tables on their hands in year 9. If you're in year 9 taking NAPLAN and you're still doing 2 times 9 with your fingers, you don't get to problem 3. Well, someone else may be at problem 13. So a lot of it is the fundamental skills that have to start earlier. And one of the ways is to make math a requirement through year 12. Most of the countries we're trying to catch, whatever that means, have made math a requirement because we let our foot off the accelerator when we don't require math all the way through. It's one of those things that's a pretty easy investment we could make.
Okay.
Policymakers need to look at that, as well as investment in teacher training for current teachers in math. And we in the universities have to rethink how we teach numeracy to new teachers. One of the options for that is to really take how do I teach a student who's 16 the fundamental skills without giving up the higher level intellectual skills, because what we put them back is in drill and practice. And what NAPLAN shows is the drill and practice approach gets us what we got, more of the same. We're going to have to get very inventive. And here's 2 things we could do at home. If we took a walk on Saturday with our children, these are younger children perhaps, at noon, and particularly in summer when the angle of the sun is straight over the head of that tree at noon, the shadow of that tree is approximately the height of the tree. So we could ask our child, how tall is that tree? And they'll say, Mommy, I can't climb up that tree. Well, let's measure its shadow. And my foot happens to be a foot in old measurement. So I can actually measure with my foot in front of it. And we could have a game with measuring things. That's geometry. We can do the Pythagorean theorem if we chose. We can take our finger and extend it out. We can look and measure when we get past the tree, and the height from the thumb to the bottom, if we turn it and have someone stand there, is the height of the tree. We could ask our child, how does a GPS work? How does it triangulate data from a fixed point that we know the angle of to a satellite in space and create lines and angles and tangents? We could make math exploratory the same way we might go to look for a whale.
Okay.
We're going to have to build into our homes a numeracy mindset. It's intimidating, however, because it shows our own weaknesses.
I was just about to say, I don't know the answer to how a GPS works, and I think that that's it. It's almost as if we've had a generational gap where the computer age took over, kids started to use calculators. Something happened in our mathematical processing ability. We stopped doing it to a certain extent on a basic level, and I'm talking about my generation and possibly the start of the baby boomer generation. And now there is a genuine fear in parents, people in their 30s and 40s. I'm not very good at math, just let the teacher deal with it. They teach things differently than, I learned about long division by HMAS, long divide. They don't do that anymore. And it's so foreign, and I think that that's the skill too. It's giving parents confidence. The
computational math is just part A. It's when we get to the spatial and conceptual math that's really the tricky part. That's for the innovation age, and we get a little intimidated. So we're going to have to let our kids drive us because their curiosity is what will actually get them to want to do the math. So we have to raise the expectations, not lower them. What the NAPLAN scores show is that medium to well-prepared teachers teaching math you rote is actually going to get us not enough. And we're going to leave about 30% of our kids out. And the trouble today versus our generation in the past is we have to have every Australian child inspired, engaged, and excited about math, science, technology, as well as all the literacy areas and the social sciences for Australia to compete in the world marketplace. That's actually the difference even than 7 years ago. We could allow 30% of our children to maybe not like it. Now there's nothing to do if you don't like anything to do with the math and science areas. There's very little that you're going to have in the future in terms of jobs because anything that can be automated will be, if it hasn't already. And those basic service jobs will be out of commission. So we got to get kids thinking math, even if they end up in their lives not using that in the literal sense, but much more the logical and perceptual and spatial sense.
Head of University of Newcastle School of Education, John Fischetti, this is such a big conversation. Let's maybe talk literacy next week and how we can tackle that more. Thank you. Not next week, next fortnight, John. Thank you. We'll catch up with John in another fortnight for another round of really fascinating education chats. And we owe it to ourselves and our kids to really be across this.